Okay, good evening everyone. I'm going to go ahead and call to order the meeting of the Decennial Committee for the Township to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Let's see, who's going to go through it? Committee Member Kearns, Committee Member Bullen.
Here.
Committee Member Montney, Committee Member Dannenberg.
Here.
Committee Member Becker.
Here.
Committee Member Hendricks.
Here.
Committee Member Ward. Committee Member Lee. Committee Member Crumpler.
Here.
Committee Member Milawangwe.
Here.
Committee Member Skillroot.
Here.
Committee Member Scudder.
Here.
Committee Member Gibson.
Here.
Committee Member Thalgett. Committee Member Williams.
Here.
Committee Member Burgess. Committee Member Bennett. Committee Member Stanzik.
We do have a quorum.
We do have a quorum. We needed 10, so we're right there.
Okay, awesome. And is there any public comment?
We received no public comment.
Okay, awesome. And the next item is to approve the minutes of the May 22nd, 2023, the Senate Committee meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
And actually, sorry to interrupt you. If we could, we are actually going to save this action item for the next meeting.
Oh, this one?
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Lovely. So we're going to move on to a presentation of on township history, intergovernmental agreements, and shared services, as presented by Township Supervisor Skillroot and Township Assessor Scudder.
Okay, so I thought this meeting would be best to just kind of understand townships in general from a broad perspective and then narrow it down to the local and kind of share with you the basis of township government. So can you change the next slide, please? So a lot of what I'm going to do is read pretty much. Our local governments are separated into the county, the city, and the township. And there's some additional taxing bodies, but the county primarily takes care of the judicial, the county administration, and public health. And then the city takes care of public works, safety, and then public amenities in general, right? Township provides local human services and direct services for that, property appraisal and assessment, and then the Evergreen Memorial Cemetery oversight on that. So our governments are not duplicative services. We don't duplicate the things that we do. Our taxing body is not home rule, it's non-home rule, which means everything that we do is by state law. And so that's one of the things. Another thing is we have two different systems of accounting. We have two sets of statutes. Ours are very different from municipal statutes. And we have presented those in your agenda as a list format and links if you would like to go through those, because it's the obligation of all of the Decennial Council or committee members to review. So we don't overlap our services. However, we do have a comptroller, we do have an assistant that helps with items that pulling together packets and doing some memos and things like that. And then we have separate tax levies from the city. So those are kind of the generic of what that first slide's about. So we readily collaborate with with the city and other agencies through intergovernmental agreements whenever possible. You can go ahead and turn to the next slide. So township government as a whole in all of the United States was established in Rhode Island in 1636. I think Steve mentioned this last month, maybe, some of it, in your talk, but
It was
annual town meeting, okay. And so anyway, it's the oldest form of government. Township government was in existence 140 years before the Declaration of Independence was actually signed. And let's see, the wording of the Declaration of Independence reflects the fact that 38 of its 56 signers understood township government. It's really a government that's derives its powers from the consent of the governed, so it's the true democracy in its earliest form. Today, 85 out of the 102 counties operate under township form of government, and there's 17,000 townships in all of the United States. In Illinois, we have a bigger state. We have 1,428. Next slide, please. In Bloomington, the history here is the settlement happened out of being called Blooming Grove. The grove was first called Keg Grove, owning up to the tradition that the Kickapoo Indians had found a keg of rum, I said rum, soon after the white men had arrived. But the two significant individuals that were settled over here was John Hendricks and John Dawson. I believe, Misty, I wanted to find out if they were in our cemetery. I think they're both in the cemetery. She gave me that information, I kind of skimmed over it too soon, but the history of them, those families are settled in the Evergreen Memorial Cemetery. So, in 1830, the county was formed and organized under the Act of Legislature. And then the history of the Bloomington Township and the city of Bloomington were kind of closely interwoven, similar to how we are today. The territory of original town was approximately 1 square mile. It was incorporated as a village in 1843, and then the village elected trustees in 1850. And then that's when, right after that was when it was organized as a city with a mayor and aldermen. The city divorced from Bloomington Township in 1911. The voters of the city voted favorably to on the proposed organization of the township of the city of Bloomington, which is today, town of the city of Bloomington. And our boundaries, they said in the history, whose boundaries should be coextensive with the city limits. I think history has told us there's been some challenges with that, and I don't know everything about the annexations. I came into annexations from surrounding area more recently in 2013, and we are just finishing up some annexation revenues coming from other townships first de-annexing themselves and then coming back in. So there is a long number of years that involved that, but right now they're all within our township. I remember back in 2013 finishing up the revenue, receiving the rest of the revenue from 2 townships in particular. So it's all completed now. You can go ahead and turn it then. Okay, so coextensive boundaries basically means the city would be known as a coterminous city, and the township would be known as a coterminous township. That's in the Laws and Duties Handbook that we follow at Township, and it's also just been stated in history as well. But I have 60 ILCS 1-15-5, and I will give you these documents in an email afterward, but I'm reading basically word for word. I didn't want you to have to go through it and then hear it double, so. The combined offices are both statutes for coterminous township. So the city township, city council in the city and the township described in this is that the offices, there are 2 main offices that can be, or 2 main issues with our township because we don't have a tax collector or a city treasurer now. But the offices of the city and township clerk can be united in the same, as the same person, and then the office and election of the trustees are the other that we talked about. We don't have a highway commissioner. That's just a discontinuance of highway commissioner because the city took the roads and the bridges when they had the coterminus. So the powers of the city council are one and the same as the township, and that, but the city council shall perform the duties of the township the city council shall perform the duties of a township assessor as provided in the property tax code. So I mentioned the tax code because the assessor has kind of a separate set of statutes that the general assistance side has, but the overall encompassing is the township code 60 ILCS 1. And then when it comes to the general assistance side, that's the 3005 ILCS 5, and then property tax code is 35 ILCS 200. So there's a lot more having to deal with similar things that the city does, which is OMA, FOIA, and several other ones, State Records Act and all that. Okay, you can go ahead and change that. Recently we've worked on just codifications of two separate areas. That was three specifically, the city clerk and township clerk, and just kind of, I don't know if you're using this, but this is an update recommended by Township, just to add the word township and the town of the city of Bloomington in it, so it was a little more clear how that worked. So, yeah.
So these are just suggestions that were brought forward from the township to the city. They've not come for formal consideration, so I want to clarify that they have not come before the council for that. But they did come from their attorney as recommendations, and they're being considered for bringing them forward for your formal consideration under your city council hat with the city's recodification project. So,
okay, you can go ahead and change that. Okay, so here we have some experts on the Evergreen Memorial Cemetery. Thank you for being here. Evergreen Memorial Cemetery was originally two separate cemeteries. One was Bloomington Cemetery, and the other was a private one, Evergreen Cemetery, back in the early or mid 1800s. Now, there is our website that says that Evergreen Memorial Cemetery, current Evergreen Memorial Cemetery claims that Evergreen Cemetery was founded in 1820. I haven't been able to cite that anywhere, so we're just going to go with both right now, because it doesn't really matter at this point. It's an old cemetery that has so much history in it, and you know very well, coming to the cemetery walks and having the flags and everything, how beautiful it is. 1962 is when the city of Bloomington was petitioned demanding that action be taken to correct deteriorating conditions of the Bloomington Cemetery. Now, in 1963, the city of Bloomington Township took title and responsibility, and that is actually statute now. I think all cemeteries are pretty much township cemeteries now, so that's 50 ILCS 610. Okay. Right now, our cemetery has 3 members of the board, and that's Brad Williams and Joe Gibson and Garrett Falcott as well. So they do. I want to say that everything that the board does there is to oversee the budgeting, the staffing, and then what they need to levy, and then it comes to your board for approval for the levy and budget appropriations. So go ahead and change that. Oh, thanks. Now I'm just going to go through quickly some of our roles and responsibilities. First, I started with the Board of Trustees. You're the legislative branch. Trustees certify the tax levies, adopt the annual budget and appropriation ordinance, and then general assistance budget. The trustees are responsible for approving all township expenses. I'm getting a lot of that out of this. If you want one, you can have one. These are just generic. There is a more all-encompassing trustee book and manual that I can get, or handbook that I can get you. It's a little thicker. But the policies enacted by the township board are executed by the supervisor and the clerk. And then trustees may not establish policy for the township assessor. Trustees are obligated to approve all legal incurred bills. That is, those appropriated for expenditure, and trustees must also reject for payment all requests that are not debts legally incurred by the township. Okay? And now that's a quick overview. We can go to the next. The township clerk maintains all township records except for active general assistance cases. The clerk is required to keep accurate records of all township board meetings and maintains records of the board's executive sessions. The assessor establishes property values of all parcels in the township. The assessor does not levy taxes. This is the only position in Illinois that requires the candidate to undertake formal training before seeking office. Are you up to date on all yours? Yes. The assessor is an independent elected official who maintains an unbiased and objective assessment of property for the township in the county. Assessors do not levy, I said that. I think it's an internal joke. Collect or distribute tax revenues. The assessor funds the office by submitting detailed budget for approval by the township board. Supervisor serves as chief executive officer of the township. Duties and responsibilities include, but are not limited to, administration of the general assistance program and treasurer of all town funds, including general assistance and cemetery oversight and funds. Supervisor maintains sole jurisdiction over the general assistance office and may employ necessary employees without approval from the board of trustees. And that goes the same for the assessor under his employees. It's written in the code. So, statute, go ahead and change it. Okay, I want to tell you about some intergovernmental agreements that have taken place since 2007. 2013 is when I came in, and to go back further than that takes a lot of time to go through the paperwork, but I'm sure there are many. 2007, Bloomington Normal, we have an intergovernmental agreement for bus passes. So we work with the Connect Transit now it's called, so we work with them on accumulating bus passes at a lower rate and distributing them to our clientele. Administration of John M. Scott started in 2009. Administration, we administered an intergovernmental agreement with Normal Township for their work fair, so that we can have their clients do work in the community. TORMA, risk management and human resources, comes from an intergovernmental agreement with our risk management insurance. And then disposal of cemetery leaves and unchipped brush, that was with the city in 2017. However, in 2018, that was a one-year intergovernmental agreement to see where we were at financially with that. And what happened was the next agreement that was going to take place was going to incrementally increase the amount of money that we would have to spend to remove the leaves and the brush. And it became more costly than we felt that we needed to do, so we terminated that. That was because another company takes it out at about 1/4 the cost. John Scott in 2017 was terminated. The board had approved not doing direct services for that anymore, so it came back to the city as a grants program. We have IT, okay, so when John M. Scott was terminated, that intergovernmental agreement was also tied to the snow and ice and the mowing and trimming, and the IT as well. So we initiated a new intergovernmental agreement for snow and ice, mowing, trimming, and IT services. And that's mostly just on the general assistance side. So then IT happened in 2018 for the assessor side. And there's a lot of development and network and storage, and also computer software and hardware. And then Township, took on rural townships in our McLean County, and 24 rural townships have intergovernmental agreements for general assistance and emergency assistance, and 2 separate ones, because emergency assistance is an optional choice. So we actually do administer for the clients in the surrounding areas then. And then we also host agencies, and I think I've talked to you about this, Department on Aging, Illinois Department on Aging. There's two programs, National ABLE and NAPCA. NAPCA is National Asian Pacific something something. And both of those agencies are federally funded for anybody 55 and older that is struggling to find jobs out in the community. They can work for a nonprofit agency. We are a host agency in our workfare program, which is the Pots Recycle out at the warehouse. And then finally, our lease for Ace Worldwide. It used to be Home Sweet Home Ministries, and they sold it to Ace Worldwide. They allow us to still lease the facility for our workfare program. Yeah. Okay, so here's some informal agreements. There's a Department of Human Services. I've shared that with you before about data sharing agreement so that we can get into their portal so we can make it a little easier to find the information we need for our clients. And then there's in 2022, our part-time administrative assistant also works with the assessor, not just the general assistant side. Our TAS would, in 2021, we were put together an intergovernmental agreement for TAS with Community Services. This is an organization that we use regularly to work with them. So we were offering them a space in our building temporarily, but as they first started up, but they didn't end up staying long. And then with the city, we are our health, dental, and vision benefits through the city, our motor fuel through the city and the township. Obviously, we've already said that the city and township clerk are combined, the city and township trustees are combined. The assessor's vehicle with the general assistant staff, we share vehicles for our workfare coordinator to go on site to make sure people are at the locations that they do their workfare at. The comptroller financial services are with the cemetery, so our comptroller in our office works with the cemetery on a number of things and puts together spreadsheets and stuff like that and helps them with the date, not with the day-to-day, but the oversight of it. The township officials of Illinois, we seek education and resource reporting from them. And National Association of Townships and Towns educate lawmakers in public policy. And the town and the cemetery work with labor law, publishing and stuff like that. So I think, is that the last slide? Oh, I wanted to tell you that our tax rate has, if you hadn't been to the annual town meeting in April, this is one of the slides I used. The tax levy amount has remained flat for the past 5 years, and this has resulted in the lowest tax rate that we've ever had at Township that we can recall. And so what we're doing is we're managing and being fiscally responsible and only requesting what we need. So I think that's it. Do you have any questions? Oh, no, that's it. That's our township calendar. You can't see it. You'll see it when you, I'm not going through it. We have a calendar of mandated things that we have to do based on statute. We have to, one of them is in the packet, two of them, the audit and the annual financial report, both here today in your packets. It's just requirements that circle every year. So.
Okay. We, was this session 5 or item 5 or 6 or together
I don't know.
on the agenda?
Oh, yeah, that was under 6.
That was under 6, okay.
Okay, 5. Yeah.
Okay.
We've already shared that the links to the statutes are there for you to review.
Awesome. So, are you going to 7? You only have 1 minute.
Discussion of next steps.
Yes, it's
Where do you
less
want
of a
to see?
discussion, more of a tell us.
My suggestion would be that we put a report together and have you review it a couple weeks before the next one and see if you're okay with that or not okay with that. And
Sounds like a plan.
When we started this, I asked for a list of all the functions that are completed by the township versus the city in comparison of where there could be efficiencies.
yeah, we met with Tim Gleason. The two of us met with him and we discussed some of those things that could potentially be looked at. and payroll might be one, but it's a minimal change for a lot of work that we would still have to do, because payroll would still have to be provided, or input would still have to be provided. So right now, I'll gather that information. I don't have all of it yet, but it'll be in the report, whatever we decide. We're meeting again with Tim next week, so we're gonna keep going with that.
So just one follow-up question to that. When we have situations where two units of government are paying two different employees, is there an opportunity for something like a chargeback process or some way to redirect the funding so that the entity that's performing that work could essentially allocate that portion of their other unit of government?
Yes and no. I mean, I'm sure that could happen. It'd have to be reviewed. Our township has, different guidelines where right now we are a modified cash audit, whereas, are you talking about that between the city and the township? The city is accrual based, we do modified cash accounting, and that is a lot more expense to do the accrual based accounting. That probably, Rick can explain that later, and when he's up to talk about it, but.
Could you repeat your question? I didn't understand how you meant what you said.
Well, I've seen other entities where resources are shared. One essentially would track time, whoever's performing the work, track time for the respective entities that they're working for, and then their cost would be allocated back to whichever organization is not their direct employer.
We do that with the cemetery for the comptroller's work. We do that with the city for our snow and mow. We do that for the IT department. We give them money for that. The only one we haven't is the health benefits, because we're just afforded that and then we write the check to the city.
And I might have misunderstood the exchange with Township Trustee Becker, but if there are opportunities to perform work more efficiently as a shared service from one entity or the other,
yeah,
perhaps something like that would allow you to implement it.
Well, I know with the city IT agreement that we have, the IT department's trying to calculate how much we actually use them, and then they won't charge us as much if we're not using it up to what the original agreement was. So those things are back and forth year over year. Right now it's a standard rate until we figure out how to build accountability on who's using what, to see where, if we need to raise it or lower it as it grows and gets more service.
And that's where looking at payroll could be an option, to utilize the city for payroll. But again, I think we'd have to also look at RFPs elsewhere as part of that, because right now, if I might be candid about this, I spoke with David Lamb, Parks and Rec, about our lawn around our landscape and the lawn around the building, because it's just really, it wasn't being mowed and wasn't being trimmed, and he said he can't keep up with it. So he's asked me, I said, would it be better if we seek some other service to help with the landscaping part of it, or the maintaining weeds and weed control on the lawn? He's like, yes, please. So, I mean, you have to take into consideration, it might look good on paper, but it's not necessarily always the best situation for both sides. So, yes, we're open to doing whatever to share. And we've shown that we have shared. But it's not always the best option.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to adjournment now because we have to get into the township meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Do we have that? Councilmember Becker and Hendricks? Yep. Voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. We are adjourned, and then we're going to move right into township because that's what we like, is having fun. Okay, City of Bloomington Township, and if everyone could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Madam Clerk, do a roll call.
Trustee Boland.
Here.
Trustee Martin.
Here.
Trustee Dannenberger.
Here.
Trustee Becker.
Here.
Trustee Hendricks.
Here.
Trustee Ward. Here. Trustee Crumpler.
Here.
Trustee Milowande.
Here. Do we have any public comment, Madam Clerk? Oh, sorry, we have a public hearing first. Okay, sorry. So it's a public hearing for the proposed fiscal year 2024 amended budget as requested by the City of Bloomington Township. And I am,
I'm just gonna open it at 5:36.
yep, exactly. So we're opening the public hearing at 5:36. And we're going to, is there a presentation by Township Supervisor Skilling? No?
No presentation, and we also had no one register in advance of the meeting, but I would like to ask if you're here for the City of Bloomington Township public hearing and you would like to come forward and speak, please do so now. Okay.
Doesn't look like we have anybody. Okay. And any questions, comments by trustees? Okay, seeing none, I am going to go ahead and close the public hearing at 5:37. And we're going to move on to, is there any public comment in general for our township?
We received no email public comment and had no one register in advance of the meeting to speak for township public comment, just because the prior meeting with the Decennial Township meeting ran together with this one. I asked that if you were here to speak for public comment for township, you would come forward now.
Okay, not all at once. So we're going to move on to the consent agenda. And is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? So moved. Okay, moved by Trustee Crumpler.
Second.
Second by Trustee Boland. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Kearns?
Yes.
Trustee Boland?
Yes.
Trustee Martin?
Yes.
Trustee Dannenberger?
Yes.
Trustee Becker?
Yes.
Trustee Hendricks?
Yes.
Trustee Ward?
Aye.
Trustee Crumpler?
Yes.
Trustee Milowande?
Yes. Okay, the next item is the regular agenda, item 7A, and a presentation and acceptance of the fiscal year 2023 annual financial report, also known as the annual audit, as requested by the Township Supervisor Skillwood. And this is for presentation only, right, by Mr. Phillips? Did you want to make some comments?
I want to introduce Rick Phillips and Andrew Beasley.
I'm Rick Phillips, and this is Andrew. I'm the owner of Phillips and Associates, and Andrew is pretty much our audit manager there for all of our governmental audits that we're doing. He's got several years' experience in public accounting.
And Mr. Phillips, could you please speak closer to the microphone?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Everyone should have received a copy of the audit with our auditor's report in it. Feel free to ask questions at any point in time. I'm just going to do a brief summary of the results. We issued our opinion. It's an unmodified opinion on modified cash basis of accounting, which is a pretty well accepted method of accounting throughout the state of Illinois in governmental units. I think it's becoming more popular year to year, as the general accepted accounting principles get more complicated in areas that really don't offer a lot of benefit to the people that administer the operations of local government. So I'm just basically, that's our report. Everything else that's in your report that you have is the townships and your responsibility. What we did is we did the audit, we assisted in the preparation of the financial statements, provided those to the township board or township supervisor and office fiscal manager, who reviewed and approved the financial statements and notes of financial statements as we had prepared them. We made a few major minor adjustments in wording, but everything in that is representation of the township itself. For the year ending March 31st, 2023, the township ended its total assets with total assets of $4,063,634 in the township and general assistance funds, and $1,169,911 in the total assets of the cemetery fund. Of those funds, $546,904 are restricted to the general assistance operation itself. $1,317,908 is assigned to and committed to the construction process that's taking place right now at the township, which leaves an unassigned general fund balance of $2,198,822. For the fiscal year, in terms of operations, the revenue exceeded the expenditures, which if you refer to page 4 or page 9, revenues exceeded expenditures in a total amount of $581,154 in the town funds and $225,580 in the cemetery funds. In addition to that $225,000, there are assets held in private investment trusts that are restricted for the maintenance of the cemetery of $262,410. So there's about $487,000 in the fund balances of the private held trust and the cemetery together. On pages 26 through 28, 29, 30, and 31, we've presented budgets in comparison to the expenditures. And in each case, you'll see that the expenditures were under the budgeted expenditures. In the township, you had budgeted $3,540,000, and you actually only spent $1,649,000. So you ended up with $1,191,000 in unused budget. In the general assistance fund, it had $614,000 budgeted. You spent approximately $292,000, so you ended up with $322,000 under budget. And in the cemetery, we had $807,400 budgeted. You spent approximately $697,000, so you ended up with $128,000 under budget. So in every case, you were under budget from what you appropriated in terms of your actual expenditures. One of the things in the financial statements, if you were to compare them from one year to the next, is there was a new accounting standard, government accounting standard, GASB 87, which affected the way that leases are presented in financial statements. If you have leases that are no longer than 1 year, they are supposed to be converted into what appears to be like an asset and a debt, and the lease expenditures get turned into a principal portion and a principal interest portion within the financial statements themselves, which is a new standard, and that's kind of a generalization of how it's done. In the financial statements, there's also a new one coming up related to technology, informational technology, which relates to long-term subscriptions for technology services. That, I believe, will go into effect in the next fiscal year. And what has happened so far is nobody's adopted using the standard itself. They've just basically disclosed that they've elected not to adopt to use that standard just because of the complexity didn't serve any benefit to the organization. So that's something that's coming up soon. Other things related to the budget is that we were required to report is that there were no significant estimates in the financial statements that we thought were warranted to be pointed out with anything that we had found as we did the audit. We had no difficulty in performing the audit. Everything that we needed was provided with us. We didn't have any problems or issues in dealing with management when we were trying to get the audit completed. There were no uncorrected misstatements, again, so actually probably no misstatements even, that were material to the financial statements that we need to do anything with. We had no disagreements on any accounting issues with management, and we don't believe that management consulted any outside consultants regarding any accounting issues that pertain to the preparation of the financial statements themselves. In addition to what you see in the audit report, we also issued an internal control letter under generally accepted auditing standards, and in that internal control letter it says that there are no material weaknesses and no significant deficiencies that we identified during the performance of the audit. With that, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to address them. If I can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Keeping in mind that we have about 6 other items to go through. About 2 minutes an item. So. Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much, Mr. Phillips. We're gonna go to item 7B, a presentation and acceptance of the fiscal year 2023 annual treasurer's report as requested by the Township Supervisor. And I believe this is also just a presentation.
There is no presentation.
No presentation, oh, okay. So it's just FY?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
It's in the packet.
Next item, 7C, consideration action on the adoption of the fiscal year 2024.
Sorry to interrupt. We do need to have a motion on 7B. She's just not going to do a presentation as she
motion to
she felt
accept
that
it.
it was presented
Okay.
earlier.
Okay, sorry. Okay,
I'll make a motion to accept the fiscal year 2023 annual treasurer's report.
okay. Motion by Trustee Hendricks and second by Trustee Bullen.
So, 1 second, I'll fix. We have Hendricks and Bolin, and actually, before I'm rereading, I apologize, on 7A, it also has that it needs to be accepted and placed on file, so we'll, I don't see any, 1 second. I don't see any reason, is there a reason why one has to go before the other? Okay, all right, so we'll proceed with 7B with the motion and second that's on the table, and then, if it's okay, go back to 7A. Okay, all right, so for 7B, Trustee Kearns?
Yes.
Trustee Bolin?
Yes.
Trustee Martin?
Yes.
Trustee Dannenberger?
Yes.
Trustee Becker?
Yes.
Trustee Hendricks?
Yes.
Trustee Ward?
Aye.
Trustee Lee?
Yes.
Trustee Crumpler?
Yes.
Trustee Maloney?
Yes. Okay, so now back to 7A, motion to accept.
I'll make a motion that we accept 7A, presentation and acceptance of the fiscal year 2023 annual financial report as presented.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Trustee Monty, second by Trustee Bolin.
Trustee Kearns?
Yes.
Trustee Bolin?
Yes.
Trustee Martin?
Yes.
Trustee Dannenberger?
Yes.
Trustee Becker?
Yes.
Trustee Hendricks?
Yes.
Trustee Ward?
Aye.
Trustee Lee?
Yes.
Trustee Crumpler?
Yes.
Trustee Maloney?
Yes. Okay, item 7C, consideration and action on the adoption of fiscal year 2024 amended budget and appropriation ordinance as requested by the Township Supervisor. And this is also, that is also a motion to adopt it. Yes. Any comments?
I can share, we received, what's presented here is additional funds, revenues from the Illinois funds, moving our funds, our investments over to the Illinois funds. So we increased that. We also increased the supervisor's equipment for the furniture. And that it's not the full amount of furniture because we had already budgeted some in it, but our office furniture is not even repairable furniture. And we did look at other agents, like the library for their furniture, but they were getting rid of theirs for the same reason we were getting rid of ours. Ours is a lot older than 2003 when the building was put in. So, so that's what that's for. And then general assistance had some increase in interest as well.
Is there a motion, question?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion by trustee Bowen, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by trustee Hendricks. Okay,
All right, trustee Kearns,
Yes.
trustee Bowen,
Yes.
trustee Martin,
Yes.
trustee Dannenberger,
Yes.
trustee Becker,
Yes.
trustee Hendricks,
Yes.
trustee Ward, trustee Lee,
Yes.
trustee Crumpler,
Yes.
trustee Maloney.
yes. Next item is item 7D, facility remodel quote from Whitmer Interiors for the purchase of new office furniture as requested by the township supervisor.
The different, can I speak for a second then?
Sure.
The different components, some of the money was budgeted under the overall building, which was the lobby, and some of that, and break room. Break room has a very old refrigerator, so we're gonna have to find something else for that. And then, anyway, so then the assessor side had equipment for their side already budgeted, and we had ours as well from the general assistance side, so. That's about it. You can see some of the pictures of some of the things. This should last another 25 years, 25 years. I don't know if it
Is there a motion?
Move to approve, is it item 7D?
Yes. Is there,
I'll second.
okay. Trustee Crumpler and trustee Bowen.
Go ahead. Trustee Kearns,
Yes.
trustee Bowen,
Yes.
trustee Martin,
Yes.
trustee Dannenberger,
Yes.
trustee Becker,
Yes.
trustee Hendricks,
Yes.
trustee Ward, trustee Lee,
Yes.
trustee Crumpler,
Yes.
trustee Maloney.
Yes. Item 7E, pre-authorization to execute change orders for the facility remodel quote from Whitmer Interiors as requested by the township supervisor. Go ahead.
I have no comment about that. They're just minor changes that took place during that, so.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
Trustee Bowen, and second.
Second.
Trustee Hendricks. Clerk?
Trustee Kearns,
Yes.
trustee Bowen,
Yes.
trustee Martin,
Yes.
trustee Dannenberger,
Yes.
trustee Becker,
Yes.
trustee Hendricks,
Yes.
trustee Ward, trustee Lee,
Yes.
trustee Crumpler,
Yes.
trustee Maloney.
Yes. Next, we're going to move on to reports by elected officials. You have 5 minutes or 2.5 minutes each.
Yeah, I'm done talking. We've had a lot of people come through the township from all over the county. And we're trying to get all the paperwork from them and help serve them. But the HERE program had a good increase related to that, but the rural townships don't have that. So my next step is to go to the rural townships and offer that program and show them how to, get board approval for it and move forward with something like that so that they can see some relief as well. And that's all I have to say.
Okay. Township assessors hearing.
I submitted my report. The EAV for 2023 has not been finalized through our office yet, so we're still working on all the values. And last year, the county assessed a multiplier to the whole township, so the EAV was increased last year by a large portion. We're seeing the same kind of increases, but we're trying to make more adjustments between neighborhoods so that maybe the county does not add additional adjustments to everything. And the assessed value is 1/3 of market value, so if a taxpayer thinks their house is let's say a $300,000 house, if they have a $300,000 house, you would expect your assessment to be $100,000. So if we're off by a large portion of that, taxpayer might complain about the value of their property. It will affect your taxes, but the assessment is what I'm concerned with, not the amount taxes that a person pays. Any questions?
Okay, seeing none, thank you both very much for being efficient. We are going to move to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. We are adjourned. 2 minutes. Oh no, 4.
I apologize, our meetings ran really closely together this evening. If there was anybody who's present who hasn't registered for comment, you would like to forward to the mic and let me know your name, that would be great. And again, if you've already registered online, I do have a list going, but just in case. All right, seeing none, thank you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I am going to go ahead and call to order the meeting of the City of Bloomington Council. If everyone could stand for a pledge of allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Kearns? Here. Councilmember Boland?
Here.
Councilmember Martin?
Here.
Councilmember Dannenberg?
Here.
Berger, sorry. Councilmember Becker?
Here.
Councilmember Hendricks?
Here.
Councilmember Ward? Here. Councilmember Lee?
Here.
Councilmember Crumpler?
Here.
Mayor Lawley.
Here. Next, we're going to go on to recognition and appointments, and this is a presentation of the City of Bloomington Police Department Police Officers Commission Certificate to Officer Jacob Shepard upon completion of the probationary period as requested by the Police Department. And I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Gleason.
Assistant Chief Wamsley. And do we need to do an oath, Leslie?
No.
Okay,
Are
thank
you
you.
sworn just the completion of probation?
All right, Chief, I'm going to hand it to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor, elected officials, City Manager, and Deputy City Manager. I'm grateful for the opportunity to acknowledge Officer Jacob Shepard, who will receive his commission this evening before Council and members of the community. Officer Shepard successfully completed an intense 12-month probation, which consisted of a 15-week field training program. Officer Shepard shows this great profession, which requires a servant's heart, high integrity, and tremendous courage. He will respond to danger and problems in this community without hesitation. He serves along with 125 other police officers who have taken the oath of office to serve in this law enforcement profession and will be a difference maker in this community. I'm very thankful for all of their sacrifices, valiant efforts, and commitment to duty on a daily basis. I'll now read Officer Shepard's bio. Officer Shepard was hired on May 9th, 2022. Jacob attended University High School and graduated from Western Illinois University. He also served 3 years of active duty in the United States Army. Jacob has been married to his wonderful wife, Christina, for over 8 years. They have 3 children together, Emily, Jack, and Cameron, who are all in attendance, I believe. Prior to working for the Bloomington Police Department, Jacob was employed by the Illinois State University Police Department and the McLean County Sheriff's Office. Jacob says that he was fortunate enough to have time this past summer to volunteer as a coach for his son Jack's baseball team. Outside of work, he enjoys spending time with his family and going fishing. Since coming to the Bloomington Police Department, just over the past year, Jacob has been selected as a field training officer, as well as a standardized field sobriety test instructor. He has also received recognition for his work during a shooting investigation. I'm confident that Officer Shepard will do great things for the Bloomington Police Department in the years to come. Thank you very much.
Okay, Okay, thank you. Thank you, Officer Shepherd, for your service. I don't know if you'd like to say a few words, or?
Just thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to it every day.
Okay, man, a few words. Thank you very much. The only time where it's okay to leave the ISU Police Department is to come to Bloomington Police Department, in my book. But thank you very much for your service, and also thank you to your family, because I know they also, when you go to work, you sort of bring them with you. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, if you would, you also have his certificate if you'd like to come forward and receive it.
Yes, if you want to step forward so I can hand you the certificate. Okay, next we'll have a proclamation for the American Passion Play 100-year run as requested by the Administration Department. And if I could have those who are accepting it come forward to the microphone, and I will read it. Whereas the City of Bloomington recognizes the American Passion Play has completed a run of 100 seasons, placing it among the city's most enduring traditions, and whereas the American Passion Play has appeared 1,000 times, principally at the Bloomington Center for the Performing Arts, formerly known as the Scottish Rite Temple, and whereas it has been presented to nearly 1 million people from all over the United States, and whereas was prominently recognized among the nation's passion plays during its run as the second longest continuously performed passion play in the United States. And whereas we commend the talent of its author and first director, Delmar D. Dara, and the hard work and dedication of thousands of volunteers on the performance, production, and governance ends. And whereas this long-standing and treasured tradition brought positive recognition to the city of Bloomington during its century on stage, now, therefore, I, Boca Malambwe, Mayor of Bloomington, do hereby commend and hold in the highest esteem the performers, musicians, stage and technical crews, production staff, directors, and the Board of Trustees of the American Passion Play, and their thousands of predecessors for the completion of 100 season 1924 to 2023. I'm going to go ahead and present you with this proclamation, and I believe you have something for the city as well.
A couple of words. Mr. Mayor, my name is Dan Leifel. I'm president of 212 Parkview, Bloomington, Illinois, member of the Board of Trustees of the American Passion Play. A bit over 100 years ago, a professor at Illinois Wesleyan University decided what Bloomington needed was a performing arts center. It was his drive, initiative, and private finance, I might add, which ended up building this building. His name was Delmar D. Dara. Passed away in 1946, just before the final mortgage on this building was satisfied. In honor of him, and in recognition of this fine proclamation you gave us, Mr. Mayor, the board would like to present the work of two longtime cast members, Amy Miller and Winfred McElroy, to the city, a suitable picture that can be hung in an appropriate place here of that visionary who gave us this beautiful building. Thank you very much to you and to the council.
Thank you. Do you want to step forward? Thank you very much. I wish I would have brought a much bigger proclamation now. But we definitely appreciate all the work that you've done over the years. The arts are an integral part of the city of Bloomington, and it's what makes this makes the city a wonderful place to live, because everybody needs something different. Some people like going out and dancing to music, and other people like art and seeing plays, and so we definitely appreciate all the work that the volunteers have done over the years. It makes the area special. Thank you so much. Okay, I think the next item is 5C, recognition of board and commission appointments.
Thank you. We'd like to recognize Mary Ann Cullen for her appointment to the Planning Commission.
Okay, and she's here and waving. Thank you very much, Mary Ann, for your willingness to serve. Next item on the agenda is public comment.
Yes, so we received 3 email public comment. The first one was from Jean Sweet and Paul Bailey, second from Lua Travis, and the third from Melissa Liebert. They were provided to council prior to the meeting. And then we have 13 people. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention Julie Eman also sent an email to us. And then we have 13 people registered to speak for public comment. And so after you read your statement, if we could start with Janine Toff and then to follow Joe Strano.
Okay. Public comment is an opportunity for speakers to provide their views and feedback to the City Council. It is also an opportunity for the City Council to listen and hear diverse points of view. To maximize the impact of public comment and show respect for the expression of all views, speakers should maintain stability and focus on city issues. Speakers must identify themselves for the record, but are not required to give their address. Each speaker is given the floor for 3 minutes, and the council does not respond or engage in debate. Any speaker that engages in threatening or disorderly behavior will be deemed out of order and their time seized. So I think you said we have 13?
Yes.
Okay, so 13, 3 minutes. So if you, I would ask that everyone be as expeditious as succinct, I would say. so that everyone has an opportunity to speak. And if you're here speaking on the same topic, if at all possible, if you could maybe designate someone to speak, and that would be great, so we can hear from everyone. Thank you.
Good evening, Council and our officials in the city. My name is Janine Toth, and I live at number 2 White Place. I'm here representing the White Place neighborhood. If I could, I'd like to ask those from the neighborhood to wave or raise their hand. Thank you. And other neighborhood representatives may be present here today because they have experienced similar issues that they too would like to have properly addressed and resolved. And I can see them, and you probably recognize them. We're here to seek your help and hopefully come to a triple win resolution to concerns we have about number 1 White Place. We're looking for a win for the owner of number 1 White Place, for the entire neighborhood, and for the city, so that you don't have this problem continue. We're coming to you, our city alderman, our mayor, and our city manager. Where is he? After unsuccessfully petitioning the property owner, the city directly, and through our alderman to address our concerns. Our concerns include the city's decision to forego a zoning hearing for number 1 that would have allowed the neighborhood to raise awareness about both the planned high number of units and the lack of adequate parking at number 1 for those units. Both of these issues create unsafe population density for the building and public health, safety, and welfare for the entire area. What you will hear today from other commenters is designed to answer questions you may have, since you won't be asking us any during this comment period, and to help you make a decision to correct the mistake that we believe the city has made about zoning at number 1 White Place. The other commenters here today will clarify for you why we haven't come to you sooner, what the zoning precedents in the neighborhood are for comparison, and the many public health, safety, and welfare issues that will continue to persist at this property and in the neighborhood unless you decide to correct this mistake. Mayor, city manager, please add the zoning of number 1 to White Place to the agenda. We thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Joe Strano, and then to follow, Paul Bailey.
Mr. Mayor, City Manager, Council members, my name is Joe Strano. I've lived at 2 White Place for 28 years. I'm here to tell you why we believe a zoning hearing is required for number 1 White Place and why we have not raised this issue earlier. Bloomington City Code requires that the building unoccupied for a year or more for any reason shall thereafter conform to the requirements of the code. 1 White Place has been unoccupied for more than 20 months. Its staff have permitted non-conforming use to continue. Staff's decision is based on the conclusion that, quote, renovation and repair of a non-conforming structure is somehow an unstated exception to the code that explicitly says it is reasonable for you to ask, if there are zoning concerns, why weren't they raised sooner? When Mr. Saeed purchased the building, he told neighbors he planned 4 units. He also told residents they were being displaced for renovations of 4 units. We neighbors happily watched the progress on the building until July, when we learned from Mr. Saeed that the plan was for 9 units. During the conversation, he also confirmed his original intent for 4 or possibly 5 units. Had we known that 9 units were planned, our appeal would have happened last fall when this project crossed the 1-year threshold. Additionally, at the 1-year mark, no construction had begun at number 1 White Place, which was undergoing an almost total demolition ripping out walls, ceilings, floors, plumbing, electrical, siding, doors, windows, and heating. At the 12-month mark, this building was an empty shell. This brings us to a second reason why failure to convene a hearing was an error. Work being done is beyond what can reasonably call renovation and repair. The work is better described as demolition and construction, as defined in City Code 4411-13. Additionally, the extent of the demolition exceeded 50% of the building, and the cost of this construction will easily exceed 50% of the purchase price. City Code 4411-6 states that when a non-conforming structure is destroyed by any means to an extent exceeding 50% of its gross floor area, or replacement cost shall be, or its replacement cost, it shall not be reconstructed except in conformity with the provisions of this code. The extent of work undertaken exceeds the renovation and repair assumed by staff, and the time required for demolition alone exceeded 1 year. It is clear to me it would have been cheaper and quicker to tear number 1 down and build a new, and that Mr. Syed's current efforts are intended to circumvent code and maintain 9 non-conforming unit status. Mr. Mayor, please, Council Manager Gleason, please add zoning of number 1 to your agenda.
Thank you. And if I could ask the next people, as you speak, please speak a little bit more into the microphone so it's easier for those of us up here to hear.
All right, so next up we have Paul Bailey, and then to follow Lisa Weathersby.
And if I do interrupt, it's because if 3 minutes are up, it's not something that I like to do.
Is Paul Bailey
Good evening. My name is Lisa Weathersby, and I reside at 1401 North Clinton Boulevard. Is that better? Sound good?
Everybody good with that?
Okay. Mayor, council members, staff, city manager, thank you for this opportunity to talk to you tonight about One White Place. As a new resident, I strongly support the recommendation of ending nonconformity for public policy reasons. Safety and personal enjoyment of the neighborhood are the main reasons why I moved from Atlanta, Georgia to Bloomington, Illinois. I care about property values, I care about safety, and I care about the aesthetics of the neighborhood. Tonight, I respectfully request that the mayor and the city manager add this to the agenda for the council vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
If we could jump back, is Paul Bailey present? Okay. Next up, we'll have Lua Travis, and then to follow Joe Gibson. All right.
I'm Joe Gibson. I live at 5 White Place, and that's 2 houses north of the number 1 White Place. I want to emphasize that this is not a case of not in my backyard. Rather, it's our concerns about density and inadequate parking. There are many rental properties in White Place Historic District. Within a 3-block area of number 1 White Place, there are 6 other structures of similar or larger size, originally built as single-family homes, which have been converted to multi-family buildings, but none having more than 4 units, and all have adequate parking for their tenants. They include 1302 Clinton, approximately the same size as number 1. It has 4 units with 6 off-street and 6 on-street spaces for a total of 12 spaces. 3 parking spaces per unit. Number 27, White Place, is much larger than number 1. Has 4 units, 6 off-street, and 3 on-street for a total of 9 spaces, more than 2 spaces per unit. 707 East Empire is across the street from number 1 and approximately the same size. At one time, it housed 4-unit apartments. After remaining vacant for more than a year, the city held a zoning hearing on the property. The owner at the time wished to maintain the building with 4 units, but the zoning board limited the building to 2 units because there were only 2 off-street parking spots with no street parking. 705 Empire, approximately the same size as number 1, 3 units with 5 off-street parking spaces. 703 Empire, approximately the same size, has 2 units, 5 off-street parking spaces. 701 Empire, approximately the same size as number 1, has 2 units and 4 off-street spaces. Then there's number 1 White Place, 9 units, vacant for more than 20 months, 5, if at best, street parking spots, off-street parking spots, and no street parking available. Not only does the city code require zoning hearing for this property, but common sense and zoning board precedent tells us that 9 units is too many, and that 9 units is inconsistent with the character of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
If Carolyn Jarvis could come forward, and then after that, Brad Steffel.
Keep an eye on the clock. It can be your friend or not.
I'm Carolyn Jarvis, 15 White Place. We have been in residence for 45 years in the house. My point to make is for children's safety. In our alley, and number 1 is at the south end of the southeast quadrant. In the southeast quadrant of White Place, we have 12 to 14 children, young children and school-age children, and they draw children from across the street as well as children from Clinton. And they run with reckless abandon in the alleys and through the yards and on the median boulevard in front. When there were 9 units, we had difficulty with people proceeding north on the alley where the children play at very wild, at increased speeds, excuse me. And we were told that there would be 4 units. There are not parking places for 9 units. And my concern is a safe place for the children to play without being worried about cars. Thank you.
Thank you.
We could have Brad Steffel, and then to follow Ryan Kerr.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, council members, city manager. My name is Brad Steffel. I live at 21 White's Place. I just wanted to come up and add my voice to the rest of my neighbors in our concern that there was no formal hearing about the intended use and continued use of 9 units in number 1 White's Place. Out of those kids that they were talking about, 4 of them are mine, and they do run with reckless abandon. And you know, it's again, as Joe pointed out, it's not a question of we don't want to have rental properties in the neighborhood. I think rental properties are great. There's a need for rental properties in our city. I think our main concern, at least my main concern, is let's have rental properties that make sense. This is not common sense to have 9 units shoved into a single family dwelling. So I would ask respectfully that you consider a zoning hearing on this in the future and to put it on the agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we'll have Ryan Kerr, and then to follow. Jean, did you want to speak? Okay. All right, Jonathan DeLashman. And then last will be Scott McCormick.
so I'm not as eloquent as my neighbors. I live at 59 White's Place. My street is a community unlike any other in Bloomington. I've lived a lot of places. I was in the military, so was my dad. This is unique. I love it. I've got a 9-year-old daughter, and oftentimes the kids congregate right in front of Brad's house, actually. So Brad and I will sometimes stand in that easement while all the kids are running around on a warm summer night. I've counted more than 20 before, and it's great. My daughter and I, we love walking all the way down to the end of the block and back because there's these big pillars there. And we just say, we're gonna walk the pillars and back, and we get out and we go and we come back. And then sometimes in my work breaks, since I get to work from home, I'll walk down there and back, and I'll see and talk to neighbors. We all know each other. It's pretty fantastic. The problem is that this house has so many units in it. It's not an appealing place to live. I mean, you can imagine like the type of apartment that gets jammed into a house if there's so many of them, and at the cost, and then how filthy it gets. People don't live there by choice. They live there because they have no other option for the price point, and then they basically fester inside. And I know that sounds disgusting, but I walked through that building when it went for sale, and I immediately went and I contacted the health department because it was not a livable environment. I live in a 100-year-old house, right? And I've paid $30,000 to get my heat ducts to make part of my house at least slightly cooler during the summer and warmer during the winter. There's no way they could run the 20 returns and supplies in order to heat these apartments. Next week it's going to be 105 degrees. These people sit outside. When my daughter and I went walking, we would see open fires unattended. We would see garbage strewn across the yard into the street, overflowing from the dumpster. The cars in that back lot there would lean into the alleyway where you couldn't drive up and down. And then here's the thing. The type of unsavoriness that even the tenants bring into this neighborhood. There's prostitution, there's guns, there's drugs. One time when my daughter and I were walking, one of the neighbors stopped us to talk to my daughter, not to me, and invited her in for a photo shoot. She was 5. My blood boiled. Now, there's a reason why I didn't go to jail that day, and it's because I made a very important choice that I might have chosen the other way. I've never been more furious. And that is what happens down there on White's Place, number 1 White's Place. And it's not just one instance. These other neighbors, when I talked about that, they talked to my kids too. That's what they said. This can't be in our neighborhood. There's 200 trick-or-treaters that come through every year. That's not just our kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, last up we have Scott McCormick.
Hello, my name is Scott McCormick, and my wife Laura and I live at number 4 White's Place in Bloomington. I'm here to express our deep concern about the dwelling being constructed at number 1 White's Place. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. It should be clearly evident that the structure and plans for number 1 White's Place is plainly due for a thorough zoning evaluation and a correction away from the 9-unit facility. My points will center on 3 concerns, and those are safety, infrastructure, and diligence. First, in regards to safety of not only the potential residents, but of the neighborhood. If you were to stand outside of number 1 White's Place and try to picture how 9 units could fit into the existing building, you would be baffled. How will all these people get out quickly in case of fire? If you're in one of the 4 units on the 2nd floor or attic, your only way out is one wooden staircase. And if compromises are being made in fire safety, are they also happening in regards to structural integrity? Safety should be tantamount in the redevelopment of this facility. The second concern is in regards to infrastructure. Where will residents from 9 units keep all of their possessions that don't belong in the building? The most obvious is automobiles. I'm a part-time employee of Keg Grove Brewing Company, and I have received permission from owner Jeff Mraz to extend his serious concern of overflow parking in the lot at Constitution Center, where parking is already at a premium. It also means more cars on White's Place, where existing residents need space in front of their own homes because there is not an adequate behind. And there is the other stuff of life, like grills, bicycles, lawn chairs that will pile up outside, and there's very little yard space. The whole development overwhelms the infrastructure of that end of the street and the surrounding areas. Finally, I'd like to target my concerns directly to the city of Bloomington and how this allowance of an unsafe residence does not match the diligence I have experienced elsewhere with the city. I'm a business owner in downtown Bloomington, and I've had my share of inspections and requirements. I've also seen or heard about the city delaying or extinguishing many a new business idea due to zoning, health, and fire regulations. That's why it's utterly surprising that this owner is being able to evade the same level of scrutiny for number 1 White's Place. This is a call for the City of Bloomington Zoning Board to use the same type of due diligence to adhere to all of the current necessary codes and regulations. My understanding is that progress on the structure has gone this far because the owner was grandfathered a 9-unit dwelling, which means it's partly based on outdated and no longer applicable regulations and code. The many voices, including mine, that you've heard today, are asking to not grandfather in lack of safety, do not grandfather in irresponsibility, and do not grandfather in an absence of due diligence to do what is right. Please request the zoning board to give close evaluation to number 1 White's Place. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no further public comment.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the consent agenda. I understand that there were some items that needs to be pulled.
Yeah, but I have to figure out what number it is.
Yes, I would like.
7M.
I would like to pull 7I.
Yeah, 7M.
7M, 7I,
I would also like to table 7J.
7J. Okay, sounds good. Is there a motion to approve?
Thank you. Stop, please stop. Stop.
Excuse me.
The press is taking pictures of us without us. Yeah, I asked them not to take my picture too.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 7J and 7M and 7I?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Bolin. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Councilmember Ward. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Kearns?
Yes.
Councilmember Bowen?
Yes.
Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
Councilmember Dannenberger?
Yes.
Councilmember Becker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hendricks?
Yes.
Councilmember Ward?
Aye.
Councilmember Lee?
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. The consent agenda passes with the exception of 7M, J, and I. No names to announce, and we're going to move to the items in the way that they were pulled. So we'll start with 7M, Councilmember Ward.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I am asking to pull this not because I disagree with it. I'm actually quite happy with it, and I didn't want it to slip through the cracks of public awareness of what we're doing, because frequently this is an unusual meeting, frankly, in that we don't have comments about sidewalks. And I wanted to highlight the fact that this item is approving $184,000 for sidewalks in a couple of neighborhoods that really, really need attention. And so I wanted us to pull it just so that we can vote on it separately and we can recognize that we are attending to sidewalks in a really necessary area. And so assuming I'll get a second from my colleague to my right, on behalf of Ward 7, I would like to move that we approve this.
And I'll second on behalf of Ward 6.
All right, awesome.
All right. Councilmember Kearns?
Yes.
Councilmember Boland,
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Dannenberger,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Councilmember Hendricks,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Yes.
Councilmember Crawford.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, passes, no nays to announce. And we are going to go to item 7I, Councilmember Bolton.
Yes, I will be voting in favor of this, but I pulled it because it has to do with a project that's been going on for decades, and I just wanted to, I do support the resolution as part of the application. Is that correct? It's a part of the application for Rebuild Illinois grant to be used for Hamilton Bund project, which is hopefully to be bid out in the spring of 2024. And I will cross my fingers that that will actually happen. And part of the issue has to do with the railroad, and I hope that going forward, they are cooperative and all the details and can be put together so we can finally get that vital piece of road in place. And I also want to make a comment that if the grant is awarded, the state motor fuel tax can be allocated to some other projects. Specifically was mentioned bridge projects, which we need, I think, in some of the other wards, so that would be a good thing. And I also want to mention that Hamilton Bund project is associated with the Fox Creek Bridge project, which is also awaiting design and land acquisition. And I'm going to repeat, hopefully the Norfolk Southern Railroad has already approved the building of this bridge on their property, and I would hope that this project would be bid immediately following the Hamilton Road project. So I will make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Bolton, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Councilmember Crumpler. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Kearns,
Yes.
Councilmember Boland,
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Dannenberger,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Councilmember Hendricks,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes.
Okay, and next we're going to move to item 7J, Councilmember Lee.
Yes, I would like to ask if we can table 7J. My apologies, but I don't feel I have the information and from all the parties involved with this, and as well as the city's thoughts on this. And if I'm correct, this residence is part of an HOA, so I think there's some additional complexities around this. So I would just like to table it for another time.
Okay, so you're making a motion to table it?
So I would like a motion to table 7J.
Okay. Is there
I'll second.
Yeah, I guess the question is to when? Until when?
So schedule, if we could, maybe the next council meeting, which is after Labor Day.
Yes, so which would be, I think, is that the 10th or 11th?
The 11th, September 11th. So table it to the date certain, September 11th. Okay. And Councilmember Motney, you're okay with that edit?
Yes.
Thank you.
So a second. Okay.
All right.
Madam Clerk?
Okay. Councilmember Kearns,
No.
Councilmember Boland,
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Dannenberger,
No.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Councilmember Hendricks,
No.
Councilmember Ward,
No.
Councilmember Lee,
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes.
Okay.
It's 5-4. So
5-4?
it does
Okay,
pass.
so the motion passes, okay. Would you announce the nays then?
Councilmember Kearns, Councilmember Dannenberger, Councilmember Hendricks, Councilmember Ward.
Okay, thank you. So the next item on the agenda, so we're moving on to the regular agenda, and going to go to item 8A, consideration and action on an ordinance amending the Bloomington City Code regarding its various departments and separating the functions of public works as requested by the administration department. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to City Manager Gleason.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and to the community. Council's been prepped on this topic, and before I turn the floor over to Deputy City Manager Juergens, share that this is by design. Our Public Works Department currently is about 160 full-time employees. It's a large department, and we have other large departments, but what's unique and what's facing us, and we've said this publicly, is nearly $500 million worth of infrastructure projects that's coming before the community over the course of the next couple of decades. The largest being around a $350–400 million water master plan improvement, system-wide improvement. That's part of the 2019 water master plan. So it's a large department. You know, looking at the different staff that we have, trying to find those spots where they can be the most effective and efficient, and then I will say execute on this next chapter in Bloomington's history. It's a biggie. Also by design, the assignment of the departments to the individual deputy city managers with the creation of a second deputy city manager. It gave me an opportunity to, again, assign departments to the individual deputies, but also to dive deeper and to see what our needs were. So while a public works director with 3 assistant public works directors could work, truly think that Deputy City Manager Juergens has come up with a far better plan. And the approach has been to look at this as if we had a blank canvas and build this the way that we felt it would best meet the needs of the community and provide for that execution. Deputy City Manager, I'm going to turn it over to you. I think you have a couple of slides.
Yeah, thanks, City Manager. A little too close for me. Can you go ahead to the next slide, please? All right, so what you have in front of you is our current Public Works Department. 161 full-time employees. You have another 30-plus seasonal employees that fill in there. And the thing that I think you can take away from this is the complexity of the department. Deals with everything from streets, sewers, solid waste, sidewalks. Some of the things we've talked about tonight has everything to do with water, including purification, distribution, mechanical issues, meter services, everything related to the lake. Also includes everything related to fleet and facilities. So you have a very broad and complex structure that, as the city manager said, you know, we could add, you know, have 3 deputy directors or public work assistant directors, but we thought there was probably some opportunities to improve here. And I want to just add, in addition to the complex structure that you see in front of you, we also have some other issues that we're obviously dealing with. One is our engineering division, making sure that we have a full and complete staff in our engineering division, and it's becoming harder and harder to recruit engineers. One of the things is I go to trainings and talk with other officials in other municipalities, everybody's seeing a difficulty in hiring and retaining engineers. And we really don't have any, you know, very few projects that we don't need one of our engineers to be touching, looking at, assisting us with. So that's a very important division within our city. Another complexity complexity I would say is that our current Public Works Director, Kevin Cothe, although he's not retiring tomorrow, is planning to retire within the next 2 to 5 years. And so we want to make sure that we've got a structure and a system in place that we can build on in the future and have future successes for. As the city manager said, we've got a lot of large incoming projects. We've got the water master plan. We've got other developments, outside developments coming forward that we need the right team in place to be able to execute, as you said. And overall, just a desire for more. And you've heard the city manager talk about that in the past, and we've heard the council talk about that. And the way that I've explained it to staff is, you know, maybe we spent $10 million on roads out this year and we're touching X amount of roads. We want to go from touching even more roads with that same amount of money. And that's just one example. How can we execute and how can we deliver more for the council and the community going forward? So if you can go to the next slide. This is the structure that we are proposing tonight in this ordinance. And I'm going to start on the, actually, I guess, the right side, which is a new department that we are suggesting to create, which is the Department of Operations and Engineering Services. This department would actually be headed up by Kevin Cothe. He would go back to being the director. He would start this department, but he'd also go back to being the chief city engineer. So he would go back to that role, a role he held before, but he would help us get this department up and running. And he would also, what I keep telling him is, have the very difficult job of building up our engineering division. And we have been successful in hiring engineers, but they're newer. They're going to need some training, and I like to say they're going to need a lot of love and attention. And so Kevin's going to be responsible for making sure that they're trained for a next generation of projects that the city's going to be facing. This department's going to be a department that really focuses on helping our other departments within the city with operations. You see fleet and facilities in there, two divisions that really do work all across the city and touch all different city departments. So it makes sense to include them in this one department that's going to be more operational in nature. We'll also have project managers and some grant functions in there. But again, this would be a new department to the city. Going next, in the middle, you see the water department. So this isn't necessarily something that's a new concept to the city. Back in 2018 was when we rolled the water department into the Public Works Department. We're talking about rolling it back out now. At the time, we had gone through a couple, and I think the city manager would be fine with me saying this, we'd gone through a couple failed recruitments for a water director. We brought in Bob Yale to come in, and he took that ship, and it was ready for it to be rolled back over in 2019 or 2018. Well, we have been successful. We've got somebody hired as an assistant director that's got experience with water. So he was going to come in as an assistant public works director, but if this is approved tonight, he'll actually come in as the water director. So we've got two of the departments already set, ready to go up and going. And with water, we also think it's important now that we're at a new time where we've got the $350 million water master plan, we want the water department to go back to being able to focus solely on those issues. And then what really is probably the most exciting to me is what the new Public Works Department will look like. And we don't know who is going to run this department yet. We will, if this is approved, we will start a recruitment. We'll start that with our city HR team. And if we don't find what we're looking for, then we'll potentially go out and do a higher level recruitment. But we're really excited about this because this is going to focus purely on streets, sewers, and solid waste. And so instead of the director having to worry about in its current form, going back to that old structure, worrying about all kinds of different things, water, engineering, fleet facilities, we want somebody to come in that's actually going to be on the floor, that is going to have their entire focus on streets and sewers and solid waste and sidewalks and all those issues that truly everybody cares about and everybody in the community cares passionately about, as does the council. And so we want to find that right person to come in that's maybe an innovator, maybe somebody that's ready to take our community to the next level in terms of our streets and sidewalks. And so we are really excited about that and truly excited about the entire opportunity of this. It took me over 2 days to get to all of the employees to talk to them about this potential change. And all the management, you got several different unions involved in all of these in the current structure. And so under this new streamlined structure, it's going to allow, I think, a greater accountability. I'm going to be able to have a meeting. If I want to meet just with the Public Works Department and all of their employees, we're all going to be able to fit in the same room. And the same with water, and the same with the Department of Operations and Engineering Services. We're going to cut out the middleman in a lot of these cases. They're going to be able to come straight through the director and then straight up to administration. So we are really excited about some of the opportunities that we're gonna have here, put this foundation into place and see what we can do for the community. So happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Councilmember Propler.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a quick question. You know, I love the fact that you took those 2 days and went and talked to, you know, the staff members about this change. And I assume, Jeff, that most folks were very positive. Everyone knows change is not always easy, and I wonder, did you have any responses about that maybe showed some concern or nervousness about a change of this size?
That's a great question, and actually, no, I did not. The people in the water department are very excited to go back to be their own department. They see a lot of efficiencies there, and really had no negative feedback, honestly, from anybody. I should add that, you know, we'll wait and see what the final count is, but our hope is this is going to be FTE neutral, fairly immaterial to any financial impact. One of the things we've told people is this isn't going to change your job. You know, from the staff, you know, the person out there that's doing what they're doing now, they don't necessarily have to change the seat that they're sitting in. This is just going to allow some people to change their focus and change some of the reporting structure. And so truly no negative feedback at all. I think there's actually some excitement about it. And, you know, change is hard, but we're going to continue to keep them on board and continue to get the employees hyped up about it.
Thank you.
Councilwoman.
Just a couple comments, if that's okay. First of all, I want to say thank you for your idea to look at better ways to create accountability and focus to improve service delivery in this community. The service delivery in this area of streets, sidewalks, streetlights, and so forth is something that certainly is an opportunity for improvement. Changing structure on its own will not result in changing the results that we're obtaining today, but it's a step in allowing you to build a framework to do so. We have great people working in these departments, but poor processes defeat great people every day. And I look forward to seeing what you're able to do with your focus on building operational acumen, creating systems for management, and a framework for accountability so we can, in fact, deliver better outcomes. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think.
I'd like to move approval.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, second, and I think City Manager. Okay, all right, sounds good. Madam Clerk. So we have Councilmember Ward and then Councilmember Boland.
All right, Councilmember Kearns.
Yes.
Councilmember Boland.
Yes.
Councilmember Motney.
Yes.
Councilmember Dannenberger.
Yes.
Councilmember Becker.
Yes.
Councilmember Hendricks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ward.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Crawford.
Yes.
Okay, the item passes. There are no nays to announce. And I think the next step, I think we're going to Finance Director's report, correct? And I'll turn it over to City Manager Gleason for introductory remarks.
He's acting like he doesn't like the spotlight. I know he does. I'm going to turn the floor over to Finance Director Scott Rathman. Scott.
Thank you, City Manager, Mayor, Council. Not to go backwards in the agenda, but I just want to highlight, related to the last agenda item, that does not change the financial structure. You know, Jeff and I discussed this, so we're still going to have a water fund, a sewer storm, separate funds. This is just a reporting structure. So reporting from a financial standpoint, we'll still be separating everything out between those 29 funds that the city has. So tonight, FY24, we're launching that discussion with the July year-to-date monthly report. Just before we launch into kind of some of the details, just want to remind the community and council that in April we passed $290 million citywide budget. Since then, we've had a couple of very large budget amendments, very positive amendments for the community. One of them in particular was the Locust Colton Phase 4 and 5 project that got bumped from FY23 into FY24. So we had not included that in FY24 budget. So that's almost $11 million increase, plus we subsidized nearly $10 million of that from the general fund, saving those enterprise funds from borrowing for interest expense, et cetera. But that grosses up our budget. We don't have a citywide exhibit here, but we're looking at a 300+ year-to-date or annual budget now for the city related to that Locust Colton Amendment, plus the ARPA ECD programs, the 3 grant programs. were not finalized, and that was about $3.5 million. So major moves in the FY24 budget already, just highlighting, 290 and moving forward. Next slide, please. So sticking with the general format for the major tax revenues, I wanted to discuss, the layout of the exhibit again. We have the year-to-date months collected, so even though we're 3 months in, you can see that we only have 1 month of sales tax recognized so far. Moving to the right one, the year-to-date budget. I went through some of these exhibits last month that showed the seasonality that we build into some of these budgets, especially related to sales tax, the holiday purchases, etc. So it is not just a straight line calculation of the year-to-date budget. We're trying to, show some truer numbers there. So those year-to-date budgets are manually calculated by finance based on seasonality, so that we can do more of a clear comparison. And then moving all the way out to the right, we're showing the comparison of 23 budget versus 24. So if we have significant moves in variance in year-to-date versus our budget, you can see maybe some of that was captured, incorporated into an increase from last year. You can see that far right column, we increased almost all major tax revenue categories except for that local motor fuel tax line. It's kind of like hovering right at the 4 million, 4.1. You can see we're $80,000 over year to date so far. So it's looking like we could have left that at the 4.1 million. But right now, everything's trending positively. So same message that we've had in recent months. The only one that's under is utility tax. And you can see out to the far right, we took that budget up by $500,000 for the year. So we probably took that just maybe a little too high based on price increases for electric and natural gas, maybe coming in a little lower than anticipated. It's still $51,000. If you look at the bottom, just through a couple of months of the year, we're $1.5 million positive in these general tax revenues categories. Next slide, please. So general fund, the general fund is the largest fund of the citywide, 29 funds. Started out at $129 million was the budget. You can see our revised budget is $143 million now. That's the locust Colton. We did a $9.7 million transfer out to the water, sewer, and storm funds, in 24, and then the ECD programs too. We did not have those budgeted in this year's. So 9.7 million locust Colton plus 3.5 million for the ECD. That gets us right up to the 143 plus, and then we've had a couple other small revisions, amendments for the year so far as well. So revised budget, we show that column. Otherwise, the exhibit gets a little too large if we show original. Year to date, we have the annualized trend, 25%. So 3 months into the year, this stat is it doesn't always hold true for comparison purposes, but it gives us something to gauge in certain categories that are more straight line. But a lot of our categories are very cyclical and seasonal. But once again, I just wanted to highlight, we show that 25%, but when you look down in the column, you can see intergovernmental revenue is 126% of budget already. We had a $300,000 grant, so that popped that way up over average. Other examples, licenses a lot of times, they're a little higher earlier in the year because we do the video gaming terminals, we invoice those right away. Last one on this one I'll highlight is the transfers in. $3.5 million budgeted. We're going to get to this at the end of my presentation. We're going to highlight the water fund tonight, a little change for this year. We're going to highlight one enterprise fund each month. The transfers into the general fund are basically reimbursements from all the other enterprise funds, water, sewer, storm, for corporate, basically administrative functions like HR, finance, legal, etc., and IT. IT is a big one as well. So it's an allocation of costs to other funds. And then one last comment, sorry, I thought it was finished. The projected year end, all those budgetary amounts are showing exactly as the revised budget at this point in time during the year. We're just barely in. But you can see we don't have $17 million of use of reserves in that projected year end because that's just a balancing methodology where we show that as balancing the budget, but it's not real revenue. So that's not shown in the projected year end as actual revenues. In the next slide, you'll see that that's $17 million means we're going to dig into reserves by $17 million this coming year. And that actually shows basically a deficit for that amount. Next slide, please. General fund expenditures. The format is the same as the revenue slide. All of our expenditures are tracking fairly closely to budget. We're a little high in salaries and benefits right now. We had 3 pay periods in June. We have 26 pay periods in the year as opposed to 24. There's a couple months that have 3 pay periods, so it kind of front loads into the year, plus with parks and seasonal programs like that. We're a little heavy in salaries and benefits, but nothing to take concern of right now. Transfers out the $21.3 million budget. That includes the transfers for Locust Colton. So you can see we're at 53% of the revised budget. We did that transfer already, so that's not a straight line type of activity related to that expense category. And then finally, in the projected year end, you can see our projected beginning fund balance of $57 million. But right now we're showing that $17 million use of reserves, and then showing a $39.9 million, basically around $40 million year-end reserves. Next slide, please. Enterprise fund summary. So we're still going to run through this exhibit every month, but as I mentioned, in FY24, something that I and the city manager discussed was trying to grow this presentation each month, and we'll highlight one enterprise fund each month. So all revenues, you can see the revenue trend are all tracking. We're a little high in water right now. I'm assuming that's because of the drought, maybe excessive use of consumption for watering lawns, etc. But everything tracking well. Golf has been doing very well year to date. It's at 1.4, almost $1.5 million in the actual revenue line. Last year at this time it was 1.2 million. Next slide, please. And as I commented on, we're going to try to roll through a different enterprise fund review each month. This month, we're just going to go in order. The water fund, this gives an opportunity for council and the community to see the kinds of activity that are actually rolling through these funds. Many of them are going to be self-explanatory, but just to kind of highlight some of the variances for the community. So you can see here the use of reserves, $11 million, a lot of capital projects budgeted for the water fund. We have licenses, boat licenses for people that put their boats on our lakes, dock permits, charges for services. So this is primarily consumption. So you can see $15.9 million budgeted for the year, $4.5 million year to date. We're at 28.7, it showed 29% on the previous slide. So these fees and enterprise funds, they're generally pretty steady and throughout the year with not a lot of variation to budget. Fines and forfeitures. These are late fees on utility bills. So you can see that's a pretty significant dollar amount related to just the overall budget, but $72,000 versus $4.5 million gives you kind of an idea of the percentage there. And then lastly, transfer in. So $3.5 million. This is the transfer in from the general fund that I was referencing previously for the Locust Colton subsidy for the project. So that shows us revenue coming in, and this grosses up our budget in general. Next slide, please. So the water fund expenditures. Going down the left column, I just wanted to highlight real quickly the contractuals. Contractuals has an architecture and engineering component that is a component of capital expenditures. So we have almost $10 million from the capital expenditure line, but the total capital expenditures for the water fund now are around $13 million. We have $3.5 million in the contractual line related to architectural and engineering expenditures. Going off to the right, to the notes on some of the variances, 3 pay periods for June is the same comment I had related to the general fund. You can see this is a little breakdown of some of the activity for these categories. Contractuals, engineering is $174,000, excavation $107,000. That gives an idea of the types of activity occurring in these funds. Commodities, electricity $153,000, vehicles $322,000. That should say not vehicles, that should be chemicals. I updated that. Chemicals is $322,000, and we have $1.4 million in chemicals budgeted for the year. Meters at $229,000, $1 million budgeted for the year. And then on down through the categories, you can see we have some IEPA loans. And then the transfers out, this is kind of the offset of the transfer in the general fund. We have $1.4 million in admin fees to the general fund. It seems like a high dollar amount, but not only is it legal, HR, finance, and IT, but it's also our billing and collections unit. So utility billing, we do 30,000 utility bills every month, and there's the offset to that is the collections as well. So those departments are allocated 100% to the enterprise funds because there is no other activities that are associated with other funds around the city. So next slide, please. So once again, I'd like to remind the community there's a lot of resources online on the city's website. Just go to the finance page. There's a lot of information on the 24 budget, all these reports, monthly reports that I provide. A lot of detail. There's a Budget 101 video series, just kind of the nuts and bolts of how we build the budget. So I recommend council, community, use that as a resource. It's very helpful. That concludes tonight. I'll take any questions.
Any question for the man who likes to spotlight?
Yes,
Okay, seeing none, you are free to go, Scott. Thank you. Next item is city manager's discussion.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Have 4 slides, 1 comment. And I think we only have a couple of slides, and they're 4 different sections. Oh Honey, it's First Friday, September 1st. It's this coming Friday, 5 to 8 o'clock downtown. And then Festival of Joy, I think this is also the Parade of Chariots is another name for it. And this will be Saturday, September 16th. Next slide. Labor Day Parade. City signed up for this, and I think the elected have been invited to a march in this along with some staff, and that is on September 4th at 10 o'clock to 11:30 a.m. downtown. And then Camp Regala, beer, music, and food, September 30th. It's about a month away, but it will be 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then quick comment, the council dais, council chambers construction, while it's going very well, it's going to take an extra month. So instead of resuming council meetings at the council chambers, the first meeting in September, it's not going to be until the first meeting in October. We're pushing that via social media. I wanted to take a quick opportunity to share that as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And under Mayor's comments, wanted to share a bit of sad news that former Mayor Jesse Smart passed away this Friday, and at the age of 84. I believe Mayor Smart was mayor from 85 to 1997. Was also council member for about 8 years prior to that. He was instrumental in bringing Mitsubishi/Diamond Star Motors to the community. We also talked about water today, and I was told that Mayor Smart was, because of Mitsubishi and the expansion of Mitsubishi and also State Farm, played a significant role in enhancing our water department and what we offered there. He was also a strong proponent of quality of life, and so I think we definitely have him to thank for the very robust quality of life that we have here in Bloomington, because he was a strong believer in the fact that it was very helpful in attracting not only new residents but also businesses, and also retaining them. A couple of other things about him is he also was an active participant not in our town. It's particularly at its inception, 1995, and also was a member of the state board of elections from 2001 to 2015. So I think in his honor, it's only befitting that we maybe observe a minute of silence. Okay, thank you. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to council members to see if anybody has comments. Okay, Councilman Danberger.
Yeah, given the urgency of the issue that we heard today and the public interest that was displayed, I would just like to respectfully request that the mayor or city manager add White Place and the many zoning issues that it brings to the next agenda for city council discussion. That's it.
Thank you. Others?
I'd agree.
Okay, I don't see anybody else. Let's see. Okay, so at this point, we are going to prepare to move into executive session, not executive motion. And I'm going to ask for a motion to enter into executive session per section 2 of C1 of 5 ILCS 120 to complete the city manager's performance evaluation.
I will make that motion.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Boland. Is there a second? Okay, second by Councilmember Crumpler. And Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Kearns?
Yes.
Councilmember Boland?
Yes.
Councilmember Mutton?
Yes.
Councilmember Danenberger?
Yes.
Councilmember Becker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hendricks?
Yes.
Councilmember Ward?
Aye.
Councilmember Lee?
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler?
Yes.
Okay. Council is entering executive session for section 2 of C1 of 5 ILCS 120 to complete a personnel performance evaluation. The auditorium does not need to be cleared as council will now leave the room to attend executive session in another location. Council will return to this auditorium to resume the open session meeting following executive session. No additional action will be taken to adjourn except to adjourn regular session. Thank you.
We're going to the same meeting, but I assure you the secretary is going right, check out everyone, sure. It's the greatest thing ever, and he's still school board president, and now he's very angry. I'm starting.
This poor guy's been sitting here for an hour waiting for us. I hope they've been listening.
All right.
We're still alive. Yeah. We had some good games on the phone or something.
Gonna sit down? Motion to adjourn. Second. We haven't had an official.
No singing this time.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, all right, there's a second and a third. Okay. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, we're adjourned.